The Warren Buffett of the tech world doesn't come from Silicon Valley. He's from a small town in Canada, far away from venture capital. Meet Andrew Wilkinson, a self-made billionaire who went from brewing cappuccinos as a college dropout to taking his company public.
Buying a lunch with Bill Ackman at a charity auction to taking his holding company WeCommerce public today up in Toronto, all before the age of 35. That's part of our next guest's impressive resume. Andrew Wilkinson is the co-founder of Tiny Capital, which invests in startup tech firms, many of which are tied to the Shopify platform. He joins us now. Welcome. Congratulations on your big day, the first company you've taken public.
Andrew grew up in a household where money was tight and financial stress was always present. After dropping out of school, he seemed headed for nowhere, working as a barista until a chance encounter with two digital nomads changed everything.
And so I dropped out of university. I was working as a barista and trying to figure out my life. And around that time, these two guys started coming into the coffee shop every day, and they would just sit on their laptops. And one day I walked over to them and said, "Don't you guys have jobs? Like, why are you here all day?" And these guys were just a couple years older than me. And they said, "Well, we're web designers. We have a little web design agency."
His early success as a designer wasn't enough to stop him from trying out countless other businesses, most of which failed. Andrew's story is full of ups and downs.
And so I started an e-commerce business. I started a restaurant. I started multiple software businesses that I bootstrapped and lost, in one case, over $10 million. But it was really fun because I would just be in the shower and I would think, "Oh man, that's a great business idea. I'll start that right now, today."
Today, Andrew runs Tiny, known as the Berkshire Hathaway of tech. He's built a reputation for running profitable companies without relying on outside funding. His rise has connected him with business legends like Bill Ackman, Warren Buffett, and Charlie Munger. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Success almost cost him his health. Watch this documentary to see how Andrew overcame burnout and built his empire. Andrew Wilkinson didn't grow up poor, but money was always a source of stress in his family. His dad's business struggled, and debt weighed heavily on his parents. For Andrew, money wasn't about luxury, it was about escaping anxiety. Instead of dreaming about toys or hobbies like other kids, Andrew's focus was always on making sure he'd never have to feel that same financial pressure again. That fear drove him to start businesses and dive into investing.
My parents were in a lot of debt. My dad's business was failing. And so I just didn't want everyone to be stressed out. And so, I always told myself that I was going to make a lot of money so that I wouldn't have to deal with that anxiety.
But even after finding financial success, Andrew's anxiety around money never fully went away. He's open about the fact that he still wrestles with it daily.
So even after writing the book and working through all that for myself and being in a very financially comfortable position, I still feel anxious about money every day. I think that ultimately the problem comes from within, not from the bank balance. And so for me, it's been more about working on my own anxiety and going to therapy and frankly, medicating myself. I take a SSRI every day. And that, more than any other thing, more than making money or success or anything else, has actually quelled my fear and my need for more.
Now he's grappling with how to instill the same drive in his kids, who won't face the same financial struggles he did. It's a tough balance, and one he's still trying to figure out. Andrew Wilkinson's career started earlier than most. While still in high school, he launched a tech news website that quickly took off, gaining hundreds of thousands of visitors. He built a team, negotiated ad deals, and even interviewed tech icons like Steve Jobs. In many ways, he got his business education before he even graduated. But after high school, Andrew found himself unsure of what to do next. He tried journalism school but dropped out after just a few months. His next gig? Serving coffee as a barista. That's when everything changed. Two web designers started coming to his cafe every day, and Andrew's curiosity about their work quickly led to a new path.
So I was working, making coffees every day for all the people that come in. And there's these two guys that would come in every single day. They'd roll in looking like they just got out of bed at 10 in the morning. They're probably like 5 years older than me, so like 24, 25. And they would just come in and they would sit on their laptops all day, just drinking espresso after espresso. And one day I asked them, what do you guys do? Like, don't you have jobs? And they go, oh, we're web designers. We just walk into random businesses. We ask them if they have a website. And then we say, we'll make one for $500. And so that day I was like, well, forget this. Like, I don't want to make the espresso. I want to be drinking the espresso. I want to be these guys. And so I went and I bought a book on web design. And a couple of days later, I walked into a place and sold the guy a website. And within a couple of weeks, I'd quit my job.
It worked. Soon after, Andrew left his barista job and started doing freelance gigs. He quickly realized the potential of presenting himself as an agency rather than just a freelancer, which led to the start of his design company, MetaLab. Andrew's first taste of success came from saying yes to every opportunity that came his way. What started as small design projects soon turned into bigger deals with Silicon Valley startups, and eventually even tech giants like Apple and Google. Andrew Wilkinson's journey with Shopify began unexpectedly in 2010, back when Shopify was still a small startup. Andrew was running his design agency MetaLab when Shopify's COO, Harley Finkelstein, approached him with a request: create some templates for their growing e-commerce platform. Andrew agreed, thinking it was just a small favor for a friendly startup. He had no idea this favor would lead to a business that would change his life.
The one business that worked was I met Toby from Shopify and Harley as well in 2010 at a conference. And at the time, Shopify was pretty small. And they said, hey, we really love your design work. Would you make some templates, some themes for Shopify? And I was like, oh, I guess we could do these guys a favor. They seem nice. I tried to get them to pay me and they actually said, no, this is going to be like a store,
Right.
like the iPhone App Store. And I was like, ugh, like, okay, I guess so. And so we did it. I literally thought we were doing them a favor.
Almost immediately, the themes started making $10,000 to $20,000 a month. It was 2011, and Andrew suddenly found himself at the center of Shopify's fast-growing ecosystem. These templates or themes required very little maintenance, but generated consistent revenue for years, turning into a highly profitable digital business. While Andrew found success with his design agency and Shopify themes, he was eager to diversify. He wanted to build businesses that made money while he slept, much like the recurring revenue from his Shopify themes. However, not everything went as planned.
And I had this really painful experience of starting an agency, getting really, really lucky that my first business was actually profitable. Because I think one of the things that happens is people start their first business and fail, and then they just say, I don't like this entrepreneurship thing, I'm out. And so I was able to keep going and started another 5 to 10 other businesses, and almost all of them failed. Like, it was incredibly, incredibly painful. And after that, I kind of swore off starting businesses.
By 2013, Andrew was running multiple businesses, but the constant grind left him feeling overwhelmed. At one point, he was CEO of 5 companies with over 100 employees. He knew something had to change.
And then what ended up happening was in 2013, I sold my first business. I was kind of burnt out, and a friend of mine just said, hey, look, why don't you just sell one, take some money off the table, de-risk a little bit. And so I did that. And suddenly I had, over $10 million sitting in my bank account. I had businesses that were spitting out profits. And I started reading about Warren Buffett. I didn't really know anything about him. I just knew that he was a smart investor. And I'd always thought stocks were boring. It's gambling, didn't understand it. And when I read about Buffett, everything just kind of clicked for me.
Inspired by Buffett, Andrew shifted his focus from starting businesses to buying and investing in them. He loved the idea of owning businesses without being involved in the day-to-day operations. This led him to co-found Tiny, a holding company focused on acquiring profitable, sustainable internet businesses. Instead of flipping companies, Andrew aimed to hold them long-term, allowing them to grow while staying independent. This strategy was a game changer. Over the next decade, Andrew and his team acquired over 30 businesses, creating a portfolio that operated like a Berkshire Hathaway for tech. This allowed Andrew to step back from the daily grind of running companies and focus on what he truly enjoyed: finding great businesses and making smart investments. One of the reasons for Tiny's success is the partnership between Andrew Wilkinson and his co-founder Chris Sparling. Their relationship is built on complementary strengths, with Andrew focusing on creative vision and Chris zeroing in on the financials. This dynamic has been key to their ability to scale Tiny into a successful holding company.
We always like to joke that if Chris owned a building, it would be like derelict and it would be highly profitable. So it'd be like, he'd be a slumlord, basically. Like it would just be maintained enough that no one complains, but it'd be maximized for profitability. And if I owned a building, it would be like a shiny architectural masterpiece, but it wouldn't make any money, right? And, it would be very well thought out, but ultimately I'd be putting everything back into making it more beautiful. And so when you put those two things together, something really magical happens.
In their partnership, Andrew is often the gas, full of ideas and quick decisions, while Chris acts as the brakes, ensuring they make sound, long-term choices. Their ability to balance each other out is a major reason why Tiny has been able to thrive without the chaos that often comes with rapidly growing businesses. But like any partnership, it's not always smooth sailing. Andrew and Chris joke that their team meetings sometimes feel like the parents are fighting. However, their mutual respect and communication keep everything on track. They understand each other's strengths and weaknesses, and that has allowed them to build a strong and resilient business. Victoria, Canada may seem like an unlikely place for a tech mogul, but for Andrew Wilkinson, it's been the perfect backdrop for his career. Victoria, with its small population and slower pace, wasn't always Andrew's ideal location. As a teenager, he found the city boring and limiting. But over time, he came to see the advantages of being in a quieter, less competitive environment. One of the key benefits of being in Victoria was being removed from the high-stakes world of venture capital.
But it forced me to operate with a lot of discipline. So when I ran my first business, I didn't have venture capitalists pursuing me. I didn't have access to venture debt or bank debt or anything. I couldn't even get a credit card. And so it forced me to actually run a profitable business. And it's amazing how most Fortune 500 businesses, traditional business, everyone understands having a profit. But for some reason in technology, it's this very foreign concept where you raise massive amounts of venture, you take all this risk, 5% of them work, and then maybe 15, 20 years down the line, you have a profit. And we just started entering areas of technology where we could run profitable businesses where nobody thought you could.
This philosophy became the core of Andrew's approach to business: build profitable companies that grow sustainably. Over the years, he's acquired several businesses, always with the same focus: finding companies that can be run with financial discipline and without the pressure to chase unsustainable growth. Victoria also provided an escape from the competitive culture that dominates places like Los Angeles or New York. While other entrepreneurs constantly compare themselves to peers with bigger houses or flashier yachts, Andrew found relief in Victoria's more modest scale. It allowed him to focus on his work and personal life without the noise of external competition. While Andrew still travels frequently to meet with other business leaders and network globally, Victoria remains his base, a place where he can think, focus, and find a balance between business and life. For Andrew Wilkinson, deal-making isn't just about numbers, it's about people. From the start, he's held on to a simple principle: you can't make a good deal with a bad person. Contracts are necessary, but they can't prevent someone from acting in bad faith. So when Andrew looks at potential acquisitions, he doesn't just focus on the financials. He spends a lot of time evaluating the character of the person on the other side of the deal. Trust and integrity are just as important as any profit margin.
From my perspective, you can't do a good deal with a bad person. And if you need a contract and you have to rely on a contract, that's not a good sign. So we do have a general counsel, and obviously we draft, all the requisite contracts and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, if somebody is going to, defraud you or something like that, that's going to happen regardless of a contract. And a contract, it gives you legal protections, but you have to go to court. It's a 5-year process. So to be honest, while we do all that stuff, I'm really trying to examine the quality of the person, and do a lot of qualitative analysis of this person. Are they authentic? Are they nervous? Do we have friends in common?
When it comes to the financial side of deals, Andrew's approach is refreshingly simple. He asks himself, can I pay myself back in 5 years? Whether he's buying a business at 5 times earnings or 10 times earnings, he looks for a clear path to recouping his investment through either cash flow or growth within that time frame. Andrew Wilkinson has learned that his real strength lies in the early stages of building a business, getting it from 0 to 1. He loves the thrill of starting things, but managing the day-to-day operations or large teams isn't his forte. To keep things moving after the initial phase, he hires CEOs who thrive in long-term execution.
I realized pretty quickly that I was a great 0 to 1 person. I loved starting things, and I really loved operating at large scale, but I didn't like the in-between. And for me personally, I actually didn't like managing large groups of people. I love managing, a 20-person company, but I don't really enjoy managing 100 or 1,000-person company. And so it's much better for me to hire CEOs who enjoyed that phase of growth and operations.
When hiring, Andrew's focus is clear. Find someone who's done it before. He doesn't want to gamble on potential. He looks for people who have scaled similar companies. And it's not just about experience, it's about trust. His hiring rule is simple. Would I let this person babysit my kids? If not, they're not the right fit.
What I really focus on are a couple core things when I'm hiring a CEO. One, first and foremost, would I let them babysit my kids? Do I get any kind of heebie-jeebies from them whatsoever? And if the answer is yes, I immediately discard that candidate.
Once a CEO is in place, Andrew steps back and gives them room to lead. His role becomes high-level, offering guidance on major issues but avoiding micromanagement. The key for Andrew is alignment. If a CEO's vision doesn't match his, it's a red flag, because once they're set on a direction, it's hard to change course. This approach allows Andrew to stay involved across multiple ventures without getting stuck in the details, ensuring that each business has the right leader to grow. As Andrew's wealth grew, so did his realization that money didn't bring the happiness he thought it would. He started by indulging in luxuries, buying a fancy car, clothes, and gadgets, but quickly realized none of it made a real difference to his well-being. The only thing money truly did for him was remove the stress of basic needs like paying rent or covering daily expenses. Andrew wanted to understand his relationship with money better, so he set out to meet billionaires to see what life was like at the top. What he found was eye-opening. No matter how much wealth someone had, they were always looking over their shoulder at someone richer. It became a never-ending comparison game.
Meeting all these billionaires, super successful people, meeting people on Wall Street, all sorts of successful entrepreneurs, and realizing what made me sad was that these are the people that have reached the very top. And they're all still striving. They're all still looking up. They're all still comparing. I remember I once spoke to a person that's worth $2 billion. And he made an offhand comment. He goes, talking about some other billionaire who's worth 20 billion. He goes, oh my God, he's so rich. And I said, hold on a second. You're worth $2 billion. What can he do that you can't do? And the guy just kind of goes a bit glassy-eyed and quiet. And he goes, he can buy a super yacht. And I was just like, this is insane, right? Like, where does this end?
For Andrew, true satisfaction didn't come from accumulating more. It came from the freedom money gave him. It allowed him to say no to things he didn't want to do and then live life on his own terms. After a conversation with Bill Ackman, Andrew reevaluated his goals and even signed the Giving Pledge, committing to give away half of his fortune. He shifted from striving to be a billionaire to intentionally working to reduce his wealth by giving it away to causes he cared about.
And the way that he framed it was really interesting. He said, look, I went through something kind of similar like 10 or 15 years ago. And the way that I reframed it for myself was by doing philanthropy. So he said, I signed the Giving Pledge, which is where this thing that Warren Buffett and Bill Gates do, where you basically commit to giving away at least half of your net worth to charity. And he started his foundation and started pouring money into it and doing things that he was proud of. And he reframed his work as, I have enough for myself forever. Now I'm a fundraiser for charity. I'm the world's best fundraiser for charity and philanthropy. And I get to allocate that money And I think I can do a great job of that. And that kind of clicked for me.
Instead of striving to become a billionaire, he embraced the idea of being an anti-billionaire, intentionally working to shrink his wealth over time through meaningful giving. For him, that's what turned money into something with purpose, rather than just a number to chase. Andrew Wilkinson's journey in business has always been driven by focus, creativity, and a relentless desire to build. But that same drive also brought burnout and a realization that his work habits were draining his energy and happiness. For years, Andrew quietly grew his businesses in Victoria, Canada, staying under the radar. But when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, things changed. He started engaging more on social media, tweeting and appearing on podcasts, gradually turning into what he jokingly refers to as an influencer.
Suddenly I was posting every single day. I was comparing myself to other people with more followers on Twitter. I was beating myself up for not writing a tweet a certain way. I was getting misinterpreted on Twitter. Like, just everything was about that. And I also took a company public, raised a fund, had to make a bunch of really difficult decisions around personnel, hiring and firing people. And I just kind of hit a wall. I woke up one day, like August 1st, 2021, and I just didn't want to get out of bed. And it wasn't that I was depressed. It was like an anhedonia. Like, all my usual tricks didn't work. Drinking a cup of coffee wasn't pleasurable. Going for a walk wasn't fun. Playing video games wasn't fun. I couldn't find anything I liked on Netflix. My phone gave me no pleasure. And I was like, I have no idea what's going on. But all I know is I've just got to stop this and reboot.
Even after taking time to detox, Andrew realized that his natural tendency is to get caught up in overwork and excitement. He identified a pattern in his life, swinging between periods of intense productivity and moments of feeling overwhelmed, whether it's running multiple businesses or juggling endless projects. One of the key lessons he's learned is the importance of balance. Andrew now delegates the day-to-day operations of his companies to trusted CEOs, allowing him to step back and focus on high-level strategy. However, he admits that he still struggles with doing nothing. At one point, Andrew and his business partner Chris envisioned themselves as young Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, sitting in an office reading financial reports all day. But Andrew quickly realized that sitting still wasn't for him. He thrives on action, solving problems, and interacting with people. Andrew Wilkinson's journey has been deeply shaped by the influential people he's met, visionaries like Jason Fried, Bill Ackman, and Charlie Munger. These connections not only molded his thinking, but also provided valuable lessons on life, business, and success. Andrew's admiration for Jason Fried, the founder of Basecamp, began while he was running MetaLab, his first business. He was struck by Jason's ability to build a simple, profitable company while maintaining complete independence.
I went to him 5 years ago and I said, hey, I'm starting this company. I want you to be an advisor. I'm just going to give you for free 3% of the company. And that's like $50,000 or something. And he just went, I don't like doing legal paperwork. I'm not doing it. But if you ever want any help, text me. Like, that's the degree to which he doesn't do things he doesn't want.
Jason's focus on building boring but sustainable businesses left a strong impression on Andrew. After losing $10 million competing with venture-backed Asana, Andrew pivoted toward businesses where outcomes were more predictable. Jason's approach, building a smaller, profitable company without outside investor pressure, became a model of success that Andrew respected. Then there was Bill Ackman. What started with a $60,000 charity lunch bid turned into an unexpected friendship. Andrew had followed Bill's investment strategies for years and admired his bold, often controversial bets. But what really stuck with Andrew was Bill's long-term focus and the idea that success is about making a few great decisions each year, not constantly hustling. Bill wasn't just a mentor, he became a collaborator. He even helped Andrew buy back his Shopify business, rebrand it as WeCommerce, and take it public.
And I know you all did talk about going public and some of the pros and cons. And in this process, any sort of advice that maybe, or conversations that you can share with us that you had with Ackman?
Well, I would say the number one thing that Bill has driven home to me and my business partner has really just been thinking long term. I think when you're young and things are going well, it's tempting to think about selling businesses or shuffling things around. And, he just really drove home that you should really only make 3 to 5 great decisions a year. Most of your time should be spent sitting on your hands and waiting for the next great opportunity. And then also just really digging into the details and knowing exactly what you're doing and spending a lot of time thinking versus acting. So it's been incredibly helpful having Bill mentor us through all of this.
Perhaps the most profound influence on Andrew's business philosophy came from Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's longtime partner. Meeting Charlie was surreal for Andrew, who had studied Buffett and Munger's investment strategies for years. Charlie's patience, discipline, and staying true to his principles inspired Andrew. Even at 99, Charlie was still deeply involved in deals, reading and thinking about complex problems.
He was constantly surrounded by a massive pile of books. He was tinkering on architectural projects at all times, deeply philanthropic. And still, what was so inspiring about Charlie is he's 99, and during multiple dinners, he was negotiating deals. At one point, he was negotiating something to do with a building that had a restaurant in it, and he was trying to figure out, how can I put a restaurant on the second floor and get people to go to it? And then on the other dinner we had, he was negotiating some kind of deal to finance a massive building project.
Andrew admired Charlie's ability to live life on his own terms and remain intellectually curious well into old age. One of the biggest lessons Andrew took from Munger was the importance of patience, waiting for the right opportunities and acting with intention. This approach became a cornerstone of Andrew's business strategy. Finally, meeting Warren Buffett himself was another highlight in Andrew's journey. Buffett's emotional intelligence and ability to truly listen left a lasting impression on Andrew.
I was struck by how high his EQ was, how he really listened. He mirrored back, he clearly was listening to what I was saying. He asked a lot of really great questions. And I got the sense he was, you talk to a lot of old people and they're not, they're not aware of you. They're not really kind of digging into what you want to talk about. It's just, them talking about whatever they want to talk about. And I felt that he, really took the time to see me and understand me and ask really good questions.
Subscribe to House of Heroes to watch more inspiring stories that highlight the experiences of entrepreneurs, investors, and business leaders. Learn about growth, mental models, productivity, business models, investing, philanthropy, and technology. Tune in to House of Heroes and find your inspiration in the stories we tell.